Hi Blender fans and welcome once again to Blender TC. In today's tutorial we're going to do something for autumn and we're going to make some acorns and a few leaves and just make that autumn scene. So join me in this tutorial. All the images, there are links in the description so you can actually download these if you so wish, but it would help you in making this acorn scene. So let's begin. Xen will delete the cube, and what I'm going to do is now add in a reference image, and the reference image is the one that we're going to use to actually make our scene, our autumn scene. And let's just have a look for our reference image, and I've saved this in our oak leaf and acorn. So what we've got here is we've got our acorn, and I'm just going to rotate this image. In fact, I'll just move it into the background by pressing G and Y like that, and looking from the front, what we can do is now rotate the image until it's in the right place and then move it into the center of our scene. So what we're going to do is actually make this into our acorn scene, and it's going to look pretty similar to this but maybe with a different background. So I'm just going to add in a mesh, and the mesh that we're going to add in is a UV sphere, and I'm just going to scale this down. Initially I'm just scaling it down and moving it up by just G and moving it into place, and I'm just going to scale it in the Z just to make it that kind of shape to start with. And at the top of it, as you can see on our acorn, we've got a little bit that sticks out. So if we go into edit mode by pressing the tab key, I can select the top point, but if I actually go on face select, we can actually select this point here, and I'm just going to extrude this up to our image. So E and Z, just like that, and I'm just going to E and Z and then scale it down just to actually give us that kind of point on the top. And then what we can do is we can add in a loop cut, Control and R just there, and I can actually scale this down so it makes that little point on the top. Now look, with a little manipulation of our model, what we can do is go into proportional editing, go into each one, select different lines and just scale it so it follows the actual shape of our acorn. Oops, proportional editing hasn't actually gone on, so make sure it's on. And then scale, and we can reduce the influence ring so we can actually follow our model. And I'm just going to scale this up, and as you can see we're just following the shape, and you can actually just change the influence ring so it only affects certain parts in your model. Might need to actually re-centralize this. Now then again, it's not too bad, so just scale it down. Maybe add another loop cut in here just so it follows it, and then scale and scale. The bits that go under the green don't really matter, and if we shade smooth this, we've made ourselves our simple acorn shape. Next what we'll do is we want to make that shape, so I'm just going to hide my acorn, add in another item, and we're going to add in a mesh, and it's going to be another mesh UV sphere, and scale it down until it's about the width and the shape of our, I don't know what the bottom of the acorn case is, so if you know, just let me know in the comments, but whatever it attaches to the tree with. So going to edit mode by pressing the tab key, I'm going to select the point up here, go into X-ray mode, look from the front, and I'm just going to grow my selection by pressing Ctrl plus until we've got that kind of shape. I'm just going to scale that down slightly, and then X and delete faces. So we've got that kind of shape already. Add a bit of thickness to it, so take off that, add a bit of thickness to it, but first of all I'm going to shape this round because I want this to actually E and Z go round into the acorn itself, just like that. Maybe add a bevel onto this one, Control and B, and just add a slight bevel just like that. So we've got our shape. I'm just going to add a bit of thickness to this now, add a modifier and solidify modifier, and just increase the thickness like that, and then apply. So we've got our shape there, and I'm just going to auto smooth this now. So we've got our acorn and we've got our little ring on the bottom, and I'm just going to scale this down until it meets and just move it into place like that. So we've got our acorn shape, and we'll use these textures in a bit to actually alter things, and we can actually move the point if we wish as well. So we've got our shape there. Go back into our image, and what I'm going to do now is actually go onto the item and just zero this image again, so it's now square. So when we've got that, and we'll join these together, and then we'll rotate it round so it matches the one that we copied it off of, and we'll just rotate it like so and just move it into place like that. Right, Shift and D, because we've modelled our acorn and it's pretty much the same on most of these, so then we can actually rotate it again. Oops. As you can see, proportional editing's on, so we'll take that off and just move it into place, rotate it, and I'm going to rotate it in the Z so it matches the actual look of the acorn above, and then just move it more or less into place. Maybe just scale it because this one's a little bit bigger, like that, and Shift and D, duplicate it again, and this one's going away from us this time, so rotate in the Z until we've got that kind of shape to it, and rotate it and just move it into place like that. If you go in X-ray mode, it gives you a better look on the on what it would look like, and G, just move it to there. So we've quickly and easily made our 3 acorn shapes, and what we can do now is actually do the stem. Now it's up to you how you do the stem. The easiest way would be to actually just take a point and then collapse this point on itself. So merge vertices at center, so now it's just one point, and G, and we can just extrude this till it follows shape. I'm not being very careful the way I do this, because what I'm going to do is add a subdivision modifier to it right at the end like that. So we've got our points there, and with our points selected, what we can do now is actually convert these. So go into Object, Convert to a curve. Because we converted it to a curve, what we can do is add some thickness to this, just like this. Go into Geometry, and we'll add some thickness. You can make it as big or as little as you want. Let's just take that off. So just like that, and we've just simply and easily made our curve. But as you can see, it's got some sharp points on there, so we'll just add in a subdivision modifier just to actually knock out some of the kinks of it, and then just simply apply. Now the bottom of it's to a point, so if we go on proportional editing, we can actually go up to here, select this, go into edit mode, but of course it's not yet a mesh, so what we can do is apply this modifier and then convert this back, convert to a mesh, which means that once we go into edit mode, we can actually control how things look, and we can actually scale this down to a point like that, and there you have it. So we've simply and easily made ourselves a quick shape, and it's an acorn. And now what we can do is add in some oak leaves. So this is where we start to actually attach the textures. So I'm just going to join these all together just to make it easier to hide them for the minute. I think that sticks in the wrong place, or the acorn's in the wrong place, so if we actually select that and then just move it, G, just so it's in a better spot. Oops, just let me take proportional editing because it tends to drag other things around, and I only want to actually move these points, and G and Z just to move it down, just so it's in the right place, just like that. So we've made our stick. I'm just going to make this a little bit longer just to take it out of our scene, like that. Alright, so let's add a oak leaf. So I'm just going to hide these, hide the background image because I don't think we no longer need it, and looking from the top, I'm just going to add in a mesh. This is going to be a plane, scale it in the X like that, and this is what we're going to actually use for our oak leaves. And if we actually select the line select and Control and R to put in a loop cut, and then right click to actually fix it, and then Control and R just to put some loop cuts by rolling the mouse wheel, and right click to fix it once again. And now what we can do is add the image texture of the leaf. So I'm just going to go into here and we're going to go new, and I'm going to set this to image texture. And this is what I'm going to actually use for the oak leaf. So I'm going on my drive. Like I say, all the actual images are from Pixabay. Some I've created myself, and I have a channel on there, so you can download them from the links below. But as you can see, we've got an actual leaf one there, and what I've done is attach that to this texture, just like that. So we are leaf selected. We're looking from the top, so what I can do now is go into edit mode by pressing the tab key, A to select all, and U, project from view. So we projected this from view, so if we go into UV editing now, what we can do is actually put this on our oak leaf. Now it's up to you. I mean, you've got one that is obviously a dead oak leaf, and this one here which is alive, and we'll just scale this on the X until it covers the whole image like that. And go into layout, and we can see that we can actually now grab these points like so, and we could just move these down, G and Z, which will bend our leaf, G and Z. So we've now got our leaf, and if you want different parts of the leaf to go up and down, you can just put G and Z, which will slightly distort your image, but because these are leaves, they're never uniform, so you can actually just move different parts of your image down, just like that. Now, as you can see, we've got some problems with it, that the black area is showing, but this is a ping image and it's got an alpha transparency, G and Z, and if you wanted to put more bends a leaf, it's easily done by adding more geometry to your leaf. So we've got our leaf there, and what I'm going to do is now shade smooth this, just like that. Then go into the shading tab. Because it's got an alpha transparency, all you've got to do is actually drag alpha into alpha, and then the leaf becomes clear like that. And as you can see, that's the base of the leaf, and we can actually put the colour into the roughness, which will make it a little bit rougher, colour into metallic, so the darker areas will be shinier, and you can also use the alpha in the normal just to change different things, or you can actually just put the colour into the normal, which has different effects on your leaf like that. Gives it a little bit of a bumpy texture when you actually put the colour into the normal. But for this image, I'm just going to take that off because I want it to be nice and bright in our image. So press the Alt and the H will make our scene reappear. Like I say, I'll just get rid of that background image, and I'm just going to move my leaf into place. So I think I'll have one at the top, rotating the Z, just to actually spin it round and rotate it on the X. And of course you can actually make it bend in any way you want by going on proportional editing, and you just move it down, and with your influence ring enabled, it depends how many vertices it moves. So increase the influence ring so we can actually give it a bit of a bend like that if you wish, which makes it look that little bit more real. And I'm just going to move this into place on our stem, and it's a little bit big, so I'm just going to scale it down by pressing the S key, and then just move it into place just by moving it visually into place so it falls on our model like that. And Shift and D, I'm just going to use the same leaf. Shift and D, take proportional editing off. Shift and D to duplicate the leaf. Rotate it on the Z. Oops, proportional editing still on. Rotate on the Z, and I can move my other leaf to wherever I want it. And just keep rotating it until it's the desired shape. I think I'll attach it to the bottom, just right on the end of the twig. Just rotate it until it looks good to you. And then looking through your camera, you can actually rearrange the actual scene. So I'm just going to join these all together and join. I'm just going to rotate it until it's in a place where I like the look of it, which is about there. and then just move it up in our scene to about there, and I'm just going to lengthen this twig once again. In fact, I don't like that twig, so I'm just going to delete that. Delete vertices. And then select the point on here and look it through my camera. I'm just going to extrude and extrude just so it goes off of camera like that. So looking through my camera, what we can do now is actually go into camera mode, and that's on view, and I'm just going to do it until it actually is in the desired position and just move it up in my scene just like that. And now what we can do is start attaching textures. So I'm just going to leave the actual image like that in my scene, and we can look at it in render mode. And as you can see now, it's casting shadows on the leaf, your acorns, and we can now start attaching textures to our acorns. So looking through our camera, what I'm going to do is now go into UV editing, just like that. And as you can see, we've got our different points of our model. So I'm just going to select all my models, and I'm just going to press the P key just to actually make them mold back into individual objects, because I'll want to actually attach different textures to different places, and I'll be changing the orientation of this to actually achieve what I want to achieve. So the texture that we want to actually attach to all of these, in fact attach to all the acorns, is one actually downloaded from Pixlr. So let's just find it again, and it was the actual image that we used for our guidance. Let's take this into a render mode so we can actually see things. And what we can do is, first of all, we're going to this, and we can attach different materials to this. So we don't need the leaf material on the acorns themselves. So if we actually select part of the acorn, I can take that off of all of these pieces because it just doesn't need them. And we can use the other image that we're going to actually attach to all of these in a few seconds. And I'm just taking that leaf texture off all of them, just like that. And now what we can do is add a new texture into this, and this is going to be the one that we use to actually as our guidance image. So image texture, open, find your image texture which you downloaded from the links that I've given you, and we've got that. So what this allows us to do now is select the texture up here, and that's going to be the acorn JPEG. And what we can do now is actually start attaching some of these textures. So first of all, we'll attach this green texture here. So get it to about the same angle as your image, and we can actually now press the tab key, A to select all, and U project from view. And we can actually just simply select our object, and G just move it into place like this, and then scale it up like that. And as you can see, now that texture has attached itself to that. Select this other one here, into edit mode, A, U to project from view, and we can actually just A to select all, and just G and move it into place again, and just scale it, and G and rotate it until it's in the desired place like that. And of course we need to attach that same texture to there, so attach the material like that, and you can rename the material. So this is acorn, just make it easier to find later on. So now as you can see, we've attached the acorn texture to that, and same with this. Let's just alter it until it's in the right orientation. Select that point there, press the tab key, A, U to project from view, A to select all, scale it, G and just move it into place, to rotation, scale it in the X and the Z, and G just to move it into place, and we'll just scale it up like that. And of course you've got to actually select your acorn texture to see it. Next piece is this, A to select all, U to project from view, and we can move this into place and rotate it just the same. And as you can see, we've got a little nodule there on the front, and attach the texture again to the acorn, and just to make sure you've got things in the right places. As you can see, we've got a bit of green going through there, so let's just move that down, scale it on the X, rotate it, and just move it into place until it looks about right. And then we've got this piece here, same again, A to select all, U to project from view, make sure you've got the actual texture selected, acorn, and then we can actually move this down by A to select all and G just to move it into place, scale it on the X and G just to move it into about the right place. And last but not least, we can move this round so it's in about the right orientation, which I think is about there. Tab key, A to select all, U to project from view, and A to select all, scale it down, scale it on the X, so make that kind of shape. Scale it on the Y, just make it a little bit fatter, and rotate until it's in about the right place. And then, of course, attach the acorn image to it. Just move that slightly that way, just so it catches that front of that nodule, just like that, just to make that little bit more real. So we've attached all those textures. We can scale this up slightly, so I'm just going to scale it on the X just so it fits better, and just move some of these points around. Let's take the influence ring down. So we've made our image. Let's just actually move that G and just move it in slightly. The influence ring's massive, so I'm just going to move it so it's about in the right place. Now don't worry about bleeding at the back like this, because we're actually making this to be viewed from one side. If you want to actually really mess about this, you can do, but it's entirely up to you. And things like this tend to have cracks in them and things like that, so it will look out of place. So looking at from the front, and the last thing we've got to actually attach the texture to is this stick. So same again, go into edit mode, press the A key, U to project from view, and we can actually just move this stick over onto our textures by using proportional editing. And of course make sure that the actual icon image is actually attached, and G, and we'll just move it so it follows this stick. Like I say, the influence ring, you can actually grow or shrink this just to actually make it so it moves things easier. Cross here, and I'm just going to just move these down to there, and G, and move, and just move them into place like this. The ones where it actually falls over the other texture, it doesn't really matter, because what we can do is we can just move them areas over to a different place on our texture if we so wish. And now all we need to do is actually look from our camera. I'm just going to change this to an higher resolution just before I render it, so I'm going to put it 1920, 19. Select all and just move it. Select all our pieces, and we can actually start joining these together. Easier done in layout, like that, and join, and join. And I'm just going to, rather than it being called planes, I'm just going to call it acorns, and allows it to be moved as a whole in our plane. And I forgot to attach the last acorn, so just join and just move it up into our scene, maybe scale it up a bit, and G, just like that. And if we actually just, I do believe it's crashed. Remember to save your scene from time to time, because then if it actually crashes like this appears to have done, you can recover your scene. Now with our scene created, what I'm now going to do is add in a background to this scene. So I'm just going to actually make a UV plane, so add a mesh plane. I'm going to rotate this on the X by 90, rotate it on the Z so it appears behind my camera by 45 degrees, and then scale it up. As you can see, it's much too far over there, so I'm G and Y just to move it backwards a long way, and G and X just to move it back into position, and I'm just going to scale this up. I'm now going to attach the image that I want for the background, so new, and select our background image, which is our an image texture that I downloaded, and I'm just going to open it up again, and it's the forest JPEG. So we've got our forest in the background, but I want my my acorns to stand out a lot on this image. So then what I can do is I can actually, with our image loaded, we can actually go into the camera, look at the depth of field, and take it out of focus by changing this to 0.2 or 0.05, depending on how far you want the actual background to be out of focus. And the things that we want to be actually in focus is going to be our acorns on the front. So what you can do is actually select the acorns, and now it's actually focusing on the acorn. I'll make it so the actual wood is visible but not taking over the whole image. 0.05. That's too much. That's too visible. Just taking the background image out of focus slightly, which of course will make your acorns actually show up better. So then I'm just going to go up here, make sure it's on GPU compute, take the denoiser off, make sure it's simplified, which will actually improve the actual render. Make sure GPU's on the denoiser for your noise, because we're going to use the denoiser in the compositor. And I'm just setting different things up to actually make it render that little bit faster, but I am going to render this in high resolution in our scene. So just make sure the HDRI is the one that I want. I don't want the Kaylee interior because that's an indoor scene. So let's have a look. We've got the street, that's a bit too dark. And that's a little bit too bright, makes it really stand out, but I think it's a bit too bright, so let's just look for a better image. I got a sunny background there, but it's just much too bright. HDRI is something you need to actually make things really pop, and it helps with reflections and things like that, but sometimes it's quite hard to find the one that you think would best suit it. I got Cotton Hockney there. Yeah, that might be better. Yeah, maybe a little too bright. Just reduce it so it's in the golden hour 5. Then of course just render your image. Other thing you can do is add in a light. So with that selected, I'm going to go into lights and I'm going to add 3-point lighting to this image, because then you can actually adjust the color hue of the image. But let's just see what this renders at 4096. So there we have it. It's actually rendering away, and it did that quite quickly. So last thing but not least, we'll just add in the denoiser just to actually clean up the image. So add in a filter, and we're going to add in a denoiser, and then press F12 again. And because that's only doing it at 32, it's not really picking things out. Also, it looks a bit too smooth on the actual of the acorns. So I'm just going to actually do a quick fix to that. So going to layout. What I'm going to do is actually go into it. I'm going to add a bit of roughness to these. So with this selected, I'm just going to select this point here. I'm just going to take all these pieces and I'm just going to actually take them into loose parts, because what I'm going to do is add a bit of a bump texture to these quickly and easily, just to give it that bit more realism. So I'm just going to add in, go into mesh, and let's have a look. There is a thing called, go on to point select, vertex, in fact no, it's face, right click, and I'm going to just poke these faces. In fact, I don't want them all to poke, so what I'm going to do is actually select this ring at the back here with line select, grow my selection to there, and then I'm going to go on faces and poke faces, and I'm going to do this on all three. Line select, plus plus plus, faces, go on faces, faces, and go on the last one, select a back line, plus plus plus, poke faces. With each one selected, we're going to actually select the central point like that. So what I'm going to do is select that central point on one of the squares, and then select similar with adjacent faces, which will just select all the points, and then I'm just going to scale these out, which will actually give it a bump texture of sorts, as long as you haven't got proportional editing enabled. It's up to you how rough you go, but I've just done that on that one. I'm just going to select this central point and select similar adjacent faces and just scale them up as well, just to give it that little bumpiness that I think will look quite good. and go on to the last one. Select faces, select similar. Oh no, I've deselected that by accident. So select the point in the second center, select similar, adjacent faces. I'm just going to scale this up as well, just to add those little realistic ridges. And then if we go into render mode again, as you can see, it's added a bit of shape to our acorn that looks that little bit more real. And then what we'll do is just simply we'll render this now and increase the resolution to 500, and I'm just going to now render this out by pressing F12. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's a quick and easy tutorial on how to actually make a realistic woodland scene, and it features these acorns. Now I'll show you a few more that I've done, but I think just adding that little bit of bumpiness at the end did the trick and really enhanced the realism of our scene in Blender. See what you can make. Make your own woodland autumn scene. And this takes quite a few minutes to render. Don't forget, subscribe to my channel if you found this information useful, and join me on the next tutorial where we'll be making something new in Blender. Bye for now.